Good afternoon to our viewers in Asia and hello to others watching from around the world. Welcome to Arirang News. I'm Han-dan in Seoul. The big day has arrived. The two Koreas finally met at the border village of Panmunjom this morning, and the talks are still ongoing as we speak. The opening remarks from both sides were very friendly, as if inter-Korean tensions never existed. And so far, North Korea's delegation has made much more reconciliatory remarks than expected, suggesting to the South to resolve inter-Korean issues through dialogue. But looking beneath the surface, many problems remain unresolved here on the Korean Peninsula. For deeper analysis on today's inter-Korean talks, we'll sit down with a national security strategy expert in just a few minutes. But first, let's bring in Arirang's Devin Whiting for a look at what's making the top stories at this hour. Devin?
Hi, Dan. Well, the world is watching South and North Korea today as they hold their first high-level talks in more than 2 years. And there's a renewed sense of optimism in many quarters that they can start 2018 with some positive momentum. We have our Ji Myung-gil standing by at the office for South-North Dialogue in Seoul. So, Myung-gil, fill us in on the latest.
Hello, Devin. I'm here at the Unification Ministry's Special Office for Inter-Korean Dialogue, which was set up in 1971. This is where all the important information relating to the meeting will be convened. Now, the talks are still ongoing at the House of Peace on the southern side of Panmunjom. The North Korean delegation crossed the military demarcation line this morning, and South Korea's Unification Minister left this building to head for the DMZ in the early morning hours. Now let's take a look at what both chief negotiators had to say.
As lots of countries, including athletes from North Korea, will participate in the PyeongChang 2018 Winter Olympics and Paralympics, it will be a successful festival for peace.
I've come here with the mindset of sincerely and diligently committing to the high-level talks. The talks should have fruitful results as a form of a New Year's present to all people, including Koreans.
The South Korean delegation is led by Unification Minister Cho Myung-gyun, and the North Korean delegation is led by Lee Sun-kwon, the chairman of North Korea's committee dealing with inter-Korean affairs with 5 members on both sides. President Moon Jae-in called for the international community's support in the talks. The United States said they support the talks 100%, and China welcomed the talks. The breakthrough call between Seoul and Pyongyang came last week after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's New Year's address and the reopening of a communication hotline at Panmunjom.
Right, and Myung-gil, there was a briefing after this morning's talks given by South Korea's Vice Minister of Unification. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, Devin. The South Korea's Unification Minister's vice minister said the meeting had a very positive atmosphere, and the North Korea said it was willing to send a high-level delegation, athletes, reporters, and even the demonstrators for the Taekwondo to the 2018 PyeongChang Winter Olympics. Now, the South Korea also proposed entering the Olympic ceremony together as one team, and also proposed holding a Red Cross meeting to discuss about the family reunions during the Lunar New Year holidays, and they also discussed holding military talks to ease border tensions and also the North denuclearization. Now, the Vice Minister said the North delegation did not show much reaction to the South proposals, but did listen very well. He said both sides would have to continue at a working level to craft details about the schedule, the number of athletes that will participate, transport, and accommodation. The two sides plan to issue a joint statement at the end of today's talks. Back to you, Devin.
Right, thank you, Myung-gil. And while nothing concrete yet has come out of the inter-Korean talks, things do look like they're moving in the direction of North Korean athletes coming to PyeongChang. And in the meantime, the International Olympic Committee says it's keeping the door open. A spokesperson for the IOC said the Olympic body is extending the deadline for registration, while at the same time respecting UN sanctions against the regime. The IOC added that it wants all athletes to compete at the Olympics beyond political tensions and divisions, and said that it's talking to all the related parties. Also ready for talks is North Korea's representative to the IOC, Jang Ung, who's in Switzerland for his meeting with IOC President Thomas Bach. Asked upon his arrival about how many athletes North Korea might send to PyeongChang, Jang said the IOC will announce the details soon. The United States, China, and Japan have all expressed their support for the inter-Korean talks, but both the U.S. and Japan have also stressed the importance of maintaining pressure on North Korea. Park Ji-won tells us more.
The U.S. welcomed and supported the inter-Korean talks, saying the first high-level talks in more than 2 years are the result of the Trump administration's North Korea policy of strongly pressuring the regime. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence said during a radio interview on Monday that the progress is a direct result of the clear and unambiguous leadership of President Trump, and that the administration aims to continue the policy until the North abandons its nuclear program. U.S. President Trump also expressed support for the talks, saying that the two Koreas discussing the topic of the upcoming Winter Olympics is a big start. Speaking to reporters at the Camp David presidential retreat on Saturday, the U.S. president said the talks could lead to an easing of tensions. Trump also expressed a willingness to talk with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un over the phone, but not without preconditions. China, which has so far emphasized dialogue and more engagement with the North, also welcomes the talks. China's foreign ministry spokesperson said Monday during a regular press conference that China expects the two Koreas could ease tensions and strengthen mutual trust through joint efforts. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe also expressed support for the talks and the North cooperative stance on the PyeongChang 2018 Winter Olympics. But he added that the international community, particularly China and Russia, needs to follow UN resolutions and continue with UN sanctions to pressure the North. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
In other news, the Moon Jae-in administration has declared that it will not seek to renegotiate the controversial 2015 Seoul-Tokyo Agreement on the issue of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. But at the same time, it said that the deal does not resolve the long-standing issue, as stressed by the foreign minister, Kang Kyung-hwa, in her announcement. Have a listen.
The 2015 agreement, which did not adequately take into consideration the victims, could not be considered a genuine resolution of the Japanese wartime sex slavery issue.
Seoul has also pledged to put aside $8.9 million to help the victims, rather than use the equivalent amount offered by Tokyo in the 2015 deal as a compensation fund. For the money from Tokyo, they plan further discussions on what to do with it. Korea also called on Japan to make efforts of their own accord to help ease the victims' suffering and give them a sincere, voluntary apology. This announcement comes less than 2 weeks after a government task force review strongly criticized the deal reached by the previous administration. This has been Devin Whiting with this hour's news headlines.
At the start of the much-anticipated inter-Korean talks, the opening statements from both sides were warm enough to thaw the inter-Korean tensions, at least on the surface. North Korea's delegation showed a much friendlier attitude than expected. Let's take a look at what the appointment from both sides said about the opening of the talks of high significance.
Talks have begun after a long period of severed inter-Korean ties. But as the old Korean saying goes, well begun is half done. This may sound like a contradiction, but we won't settle with just the first step. We will take more gradual steps to resolve issues one by one.
We came to the table thinking it would be nice to give the world a New Year's gift by holding a successful inter-Korean dialogue with a serious and sincere attitude.
Now for a more in-depth analysis on what we can expect from today's historic talks, we're joined by Dr. Kim Kwang-jin, a research fellow at the Institute for National Security Strategy. Dr. Kim, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me here.
As we just saw, we're hearing news from on the remarks made by the delegations from both sides, and they sound very reconciliatory. How do you assess the progress of the talks so far?
The dialogue, took place in a very friendly atmosphere. It is conciliatory, and the process is so fast. They exchanged already the draft statement. So I think we can expect very good results of these talks.
So the progress is good so far. Now, we know that the talks are being held with a primary focus on North Korea's participation in PyeongChang Winter Games, as well as the reunion of families separated by the Korean War. Could you elaborate for us in detail what kind of agreements will be made on those two issues?
This talk is focused on North Korea's participation in PyeongChang Olympic Games. And in his New Year address, Kim Jong-un himself, said that North Korea is ready to take part in the Olympic Games, and he also said that they are ready for the inter-Korean talks. So the procedure after that was so fast, within 28 hours, I think our government proposed to North Korea to take a high-level talks, and then in 2 days. After South Korea and United States agreed to postpone joint exercise drill, joint military drills until after Olympics, and then North Korea, responded to our proposal to, hold these high-level talks. So the, procedure was so quick and brief, and we could expect from that North Korea's participation in Olympics is no problem. They are very active in having very active approach to this. And of course, between North Korea and international community and inter-Korean issues, we have a lot of issues, including the nuclear, human rights, and reunion of separate families, etc. And North Korea is now under very strong pressure of sanctions from the international community over their nuclear and missile provocations. So to handle other issues will push us into troubles, like nuclear issue and also the military tension, easing military tensions and other stuff. It's very complicated because it is linked to each other. So I think our government proposed to North Korea to hold this reunion meeting again of the separate families. If this talk produced the best results, it would be that the agreement of having another reunion meeting the Lunar New Year's Day. But at least I think these talks would produce the participation of North Korea in PyeongChang Olympic Games.
And why is North Korea's participation in the Winter Games so important? What does North Korea gain from it, and what does it mean to South Korea and the world?
It's very important because, last year we have seen very high tension, between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And actually there were 3, aircraft carrier, fleet around our peninsula. And the tension was so high. So everybody wants this, to calm down this tension. And North Korea decided, and actually our government proposed to North Korea to take part in the Olympics and asked them to come to the dialogue table. And they rejected that. They didn't respond to that. But this time, with Kim Jong-un's New Year's address, they suddenly decided to take the talks and also take part in the Olympic Games. So it's important because we can ease this tension. Maybe I don't know how long, but at least during the Olympic time period, we can do that. So it is important. And of course, and also our government's approach towards North Korea is that we need to have talks and turn this tension into a peaceful situation and solve all issues through dialogue and through peaceful means. And North Korea didn't respond to that. So it is important for us to have these peaceful Olympic Games here, in our country, and also we can ease the tension at least for several months, and also to the best, maybe we can expect United States and North Korea will sit down someday at the table and talk about on nuclear issues. So it can work as a turning point for the future, Korean Peninsula, and also for future of the nuclear issue.
So today's talks has many significance in various aspects. Now, North Korea's point man Lee Sun-kwon has fortunately answering to President Moon Jae-in's request to hold talks, has said today that the North hopes to resolve inter-Korean issues through dialogue, which is quite a big statement to make at a critical time like this. Now let's take a quick look at the briefing delivered by South Korea's Vice Unification Minister before we talk further.
North Korea has made clear that it's determined to reach groundmaking momentum by making today's talk constructive. North Korea has also suggested seeking reconciliation and unity while resolving inter-Korean issues through dialogue.
Now, as we just saw, Dr. Kim, North Korea's point man Lee Sun-kwon has stated that used the term groundbreaking momentum. What does he mean by groundbreaking momentum? Will things be really different this time? Is North Korea really changing, or is it just using today's talks yet again for its own political gains?
Groundbreaking, means that during the last several years, North Korea, two Koreas, relations was so bad. We didn't have a talk, we closed down, of course, because of North Korea's, nuclear provocation, we closed down Kaesong Industrial Complex, and in 2008, I think, Kumgangsan tourism was also stopped. So I think he mentioned about this groundbreaking. It can work as a turning point for new and good, inter-Korean relations. When we assess the future or the attitude of some country or some person, we should read their, records and history, and also their policy and their utterance, what they say now. But they've already, they've of course changed. They responded to this dialogue and they decided to take part in Olympic Games. But other things, they are having same stance on the nuclear issue, and they haven't changed other, stuff too, military, human rights, and almost everything. They have not changed it, And in Kim Jong-un's New Year's address, he mentioned about the participation in PyeongChang Olympic Games. They said that based on achievement of North Korea's nuclear armed status, they will forget everything, the past stuff, and then we start again the inter-Korean relations. But I don't think we can do that. And we have other things, including the reunion of separate families. And in the past, the history record said that they are not active in having these reunions of families. So we should see, of course, there is a small beginning, of course, but we need to wait and see. But from their record and what they are saying now, we cannot expect that much, change in North Korea's stance to other problems.
So you don't think North Korea will change fundamentally, especially when it comes to their nuclear program. But at least on the surface, North Korea seems quite sincere this time. Do you think that perhaps the two Koreas will be able to hold talks on a regular basis after today's talks? And also, will they be able to address the nuclear issue sometime down the road?
I think this talk will produce the result that North Korea will surely take part in Olympic Games. And also they will state that they will continue the talks and broaden it to other issues, including the reunion of separate families, And also, maybe during PyeongChang Olympic Games, they will send very high-level, delegation to the games. So, and also, United States will send very, high-level delegation, including Trump, President Trump's family members. So, it is likely that they will meet. And there was a news that, United States tried very hard to have a talk with, North Korea, meeting in Beijing. And they always try that.
The U.S.
Yes, and also North Korea, they didn't abandon all talks. They are reluctant to take part in the talks on their nuclear issue and on their human rights issue, something like that. But they are sometimes open to talk. So I think this case will be a good beginning and will serve as a good momentum to having other talks, finally including the nuclear issue.
Do you think during today's talks, other sensitive issues, such as the reopening of the Kaesong Joint Industrial Complex and the Mount Kumgang Tourism Project, do you think these sensitive issues will be brought to the table today?
No. I don't think tour sites have brought this on the table because it's very sensitive. International community is very hard, on imposing sanctions to North Korea now. China is very serious on the very date that we announced the dialogue between two Koreas. China began to stop selling iron. Products, metal products. So it's very serious, and it is international issue. The United States Security Council and our government, individually is imposing sanctions on North Korea. So the sanction is focused on halting the inflow of foreign hard cash to Kim Jong-un and North Korean regime for their nuclear and missile program. So it's a very serious issue. So I don't think they've discussed this, this time. And our government and our delegation raised the issue of, nuclear issue to North Korean delegation. They just listen to that. That means, if they fight, then, the result of the talk will be failed, and it will, affect their participation in Olympic Games. So I think they will avoid this, serious issues this time.
So the sensitive issues such as the reopening of Kaesong as well as the Mount Kumgang project will not be raised, and also the nuclear issue will not be talked about that much. Now, given that, having said that, many people here in South Korea remain skeptical. They question the meaning of holding so many inter-Korean talks when we know almost for sure that North Korea will never give up its nuclear ambition. What's your take on this?
Actually, having to do something is better than nothing, actually. So at least we should have to meet and talk. We can hear each other, what they think and what is their problem. And, and through these talks, we can solve all issues peacefully through peaceful means. So, of course, North Korea still does not, show any sign of fundamental change, especially on their nuclear issue. And they're saying that they are nuclear-armed state, and they can even, strike United States, American main soil. So it will take time, and it will take a lot of efforts for us to have good results on nuclear issue, I suppose.
One last question before I let you go. Do you think there is any possibility of the U.S. and North Korea sitting down for sideline talks at the PyeongChang Winter Games?
I think, President Trump also said that he hoped this inter-Korean talk would produce good result beyond that in Olympic Games. And that means that United States, of course, wants serious talk on nuclear issue in North Korea. So why don't we try to let all parties to have a talk, just begin talk during that Olympic Games, because we are having all these high-level delegations and having good chance to have, dinner or, or it is a celebration. So I think we can use this chance, a very good chance of having them talk.
Well, Dr. Kim, I'm afraid that is all the time we have for you today. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your insights with us
Thank
today.
you for having me here.
Well, that does it for now, but keep it tuned to Arirang to get the latest feeds on the outcome of the rare inter-Korean dialogue. From all of us here at Arirang, thank you for watching.
A village full of exciting sports. It's PyeongChang. Shall we take a look inside the Ice Kingdom of sports?